Introduce major policy interventions that have development and climate projection imperatives.
Climate action can be one of the main drivers of Africa's growth.
Hello again. Apologies as to how the first day of the ongoing Africa Climate Summit ended. This is Let's Talk Ghana here on Studios 2 Television. We bring to you exclusive details as and when it comes. We're putting Ghana first in all of our conversations, but this time Ghana is part of Africa, where we're following the ongoing Africa, the maiden edition really, Africa Climate Summit. It was a packed day yesterday. Today we're continuing, and these are the main highlights from all of the activities and all of the sessions that has been coming through today.
Our seats. We have less than 10 minutes to begin. So please, let's take our seats. And let's settle down. My request is that we find our seats and take our seats, please. Those of us who are still standing, please let's find our seats and settle down. We have little time before we begin. Please find your seat and take your seat. Kindly, let's take our seats. We need to settle the room, so please let's take our seats. Please, let's settle down. We need to take our seats. Let's clear the front, clear the aisle, and take our seats, please.
But to realize this potential, the world needs to do its own part in helping steer Africa on the pathway to an inclusive, sustainable, and
from Nairobi today, and make it clear that it is past time to address the tough issues. It is past time to hold the difficult but much needed conversation.
In my very honest opinion, the reform of the multilateral development banks will achieve two things. And when we talk about reform of multilateral development banks, some of those banks, whether it is IMF or World Bank, we are shareholders. So legitimately, these are our institutions, and therefore, we need to deal with how do we make these institutions of ours much more fit for purpose? How do we make them fit for purpose? So, number one, we think like we did with COVID, when there was some creativity and innovation that resulted in special drawing rights. We think that there is scope in that window of special drawing rights to meet the challenges that we have of the moment of energy transition. What we would want done differently this time is that the manner in which these resources are allocated should be different, where those who need it most get it, while those who need it least don't have to get a lion's share of what they don't need. That's number one. Number two, we believe also creatively and in an innovative manner, there is scope for us to use and leverage the balance sheets of these institutions. And I must do a disclaimer. I am not a financial person. I am a scientist. But I am very confident that we have very intelligent people. We are not short of good economists and analysts and financial people who can imagine that space and tell us what is it that we can do to leverage the balance sheets of these great institutions. And that is what my sister Motley is talking about, the Bridgetown Initiative. How do we raise an extra $500 billion every year, or at least in 5 years, to be able to do what we must do with energy transition? And finally, I think the other option that we need to have a conversation about is carbon tax. This is a very controversial thing, but it is the right thing to have the conversation about. However controversial it may be, I mean, we need to have a conversation about carbon tax. If we are to raise the scale of resources needed for energy transition, we must have a conversation about carbon tax. In fact, the numbers speak to it. The IMF has actually done a lot of work around it, and they have told us it is possible to raise 870 billion shillings from carbon tax. The only problem that IMF is pointing to us is that there is insufficient political will. And there are challenges with political will. Surely, faced with an existential threat to humanity, aren't we able to muster the political will to achieve this? And let me give one more thought around it. The EU Parliament has already considered FTT, the financial transaction tax, as a means of raising resources to deal with climate change. We're going to be firmly, let me conclude by saying that this time round, we're going to be firmly on the table. It doesn't matter how uncomfortable this conversation is. It doesn't matter who we annoy. We are going to be here until we are heard and until the right thing happens.
Since you took office, I very much welcome Kenya's Climate Change Act 2023 that was launched during this summit and that puts strong emphasis on carbon markets. We fully support you on this important topic. Presidents, prime ministers, fellow leaders, excellencies, I want to greet my colleague Moussa Faki, Chairman of the African Union. I want to greet the President Assoumani from the Comoros. I want to greet Secretary General Antonio Guterres, Dr. Sultan Al Jaber, President of the COP28, my fellow leaders, ladies and gentlemen. I am deeply honored to participate in this discussion. This summit is a crucial step to prepare the upcoming COP28 meeting and to make sure that Africa's voice resonates around the world and that Africa's priorities as a continent that is most affected by climate change are duly taken on board. Today, I'm here not only to listen to you, but also to bring Europe's offer to be your ally at COP28 and to work together on all issues on the agenda. Because however different our two continents may look, we share the same interests when it comes to climate action. We hear you, President Ruto, and dear friends, when you say that Africa's first priority is to grow your economy, yes, and lift as many people as possible out of poverty. Yes, you're so right. Climate action is part of the solution. You are part of the solution. With your huge potential for renewable energy and clean hydrogen, your critical raw materials, your incredible nature and biodiversity, and your young workforce. You can help clean up global energy systems and supply chains while creating good jobs here and economic opportunities yet that your people demand, rightly so. This is a win-win partnership which benefits Africa and the world. For instance, the benefits of expanding Africa's clean energy sector would be massive. By speeding up the transition to solar and wind power, energy sector jobs in Africa could double in a few years. And Africa could produce enough clean energy not only to power up your continent, but also to export abroad. Climate action can be one of the main drivers of Africa's growth. But for this, Africa needs massive investment. And Europe wants to be your partner, in closing this investment gap. First of all, we fully support the need for multilateral development bank reform. It is time to move from words to action, absolutely. Secondly, investment has to come. And this is why 150 billion euro in our investment plan are designated for Africa. We call it Global Gateway. They are aimed at the African continent.
A common African position towards the deliberations of COP28 in Dubai is a highly commendable one, especially if you can help us define how we can mobilize our own resources to address this critical issue of climate change. Ghana's nationally determined contributions towards combating climate change have been fully incorporated into government's coordinated program for economic and social development policies to facilitate their implementation. We have introduced major policy interventions that have development and climate projection imperatives. Our flagship programs, whether they are the programs for planting for food and jobs, or One Village, One Dam, or One District, One Factory, are all geared towards boosting industrialization and rural development, as well as building our resilience to the impacts of climate change. The strategic focus of the One Village, One Dam initiative, for example, in the northern regions of our country, is to provide all year-round access to water to smallholder farmers who practically have no viable livelihood alternatives during the long dry seasons. We're also determined to make natural gas, which we have in abundance, available for the generation of electricity. We placed a ban on illegal mining, the phenomenon we call galamsey, which was destroying our water bodies, vegetation, and our forests. Some 20,000 young people have been engaged to plant more than 30 million trees in 2 years to create jobs and restore degraded land. These policy initiatives are already using positive results to the attainment of the SDG goals, particularly the goal of reducing our carbon emissions. Additionally, I've established an advisory group of prominent private sector chief executives who are setting up a $100 million SDGs delivery fund and a $200 million green fund to complement government's efforts at tackling climate change and funding the implementation of the SDGs. Whilst we strive to do our bit to halt climate change at the national level, we expect also a lot to be done at the international level. One major issue of concern to us is the need to streamline access to international climate finance to complement national funding. I believe this forum will throw more light on practical ways to mobilize financial resources to support the implementation of national climate actions, especially how we can guarantee a different future from the past and ensure that the commitments of the developed world towards climate finance, which have not been met in the past, will be met in the future. Excellencies, it is obvious that we have to act swiftly and decisively to mitigate these effects and ensure a sustainable future for generations to come. The impact of climate change, as we know, is not limited to the African continent alone. It is a global issue that affects all of us. Thus, addressing climate change in Africa, as President Ruto so forcefully articulated, is a moral and strategic necessity for global climate action. Hopefully, COP28 in Dubai will provide us a concrete roadmap towards that end and ensure a just energy transition for us in Africa. I thank you for your attention.
And so exclusive details for you here on Studios 2 Television. On Wednesday, there's the expectation that African leaders will put together a declaration. The Nairobi Declaration, it is being called. We look forward to that. We'll bring you the details at the end of the day. Of course, we leave you by 3 hours back home in Ghana. And so we seek to put the details together and have it delivered to you here on Studios 2 TV. I am Eric Mawenegbet, as always. A pleasure coming your way from Nairobi, Kenya, in East Africa.
Studios 2 TV. The truth is here in your eyes.